Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast, not live here on Friday, June the 20th. I am your host, JT Ruhnke, writer and reporter here at the 440 Sports Podcast Network. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your social media fix at JT_Ruhnke. Joined once again, like I said, not live here on Friday for all of you watching, but Thursday for us is my co-host, Stoney Keeley, editor-in-chief over at the So Bros Network, one half of Football and Other F Words, and co-writer over at Stacking the Inbox. Stoney, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well. Approaching the holiday weekend, July 4th coming up. I've got a week of vacation scheduled, going to drive up to Rhode Island for a wedding. I'm kind of like winding down for the break. It's the weekend. It's a hot read happy hour, all those things. I'm feeling good, man. I'm on top of the world.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And look, we didn't even have to do a show today. Obviously, we're recording it beforehand because of some scheduling conflicts, and I'm headed back to Cincinnati for my brother's graduation party and seeing family and whatnot this weekend, and just couldn't make it work to go live on Friday. But a couple things I wanted to talk about today, mostly about the idea of today's show, Titans-wise, is going to be what Cam Ward has to do with his development for us to feel very confident in him going into the preseason and to the regular season. I know last year on this show, we continued to talk about what do we need to see from Will Levis to even feel confident about his abilities to lead this team. And we eventually came away with the idea of we don't even know really what's going on. And so it's hard to say if we are confident or not. And so I think it's a little different once again this year with Cam Ward under center, but that's going to be the bulk of our conversation today. As always, we are brought to you by our presenting sponsor, ML Rose Craft Beer and Burgers, along with Sinkers Beverages. More on those two lovely establishments later. But first, couple things to address with the Hot Read podcast as we enter the off-season space in this darkness area. And the first bit of news is that if we do not have two shows regularly through and up until training camp, just be prepared for that. We'll try to still do one, or at least I will try to do one every single week until we get up to training camp with a lot of moving parts in the background. But I know you were talking up how it's a happy hour Friday for all the viewers, and we're excited and we're happy, but not to whiplash them in the face, but we do have some pretty disheartening news on the Hot Read podcast, and that is that with a heavy heart, Stoney, this is your second to last show on the Hot Read podcast as the co-host.
Yes, Tuesday I will be able to say my final goodbyes for now, a more appropriate message. I can't talk about where I'm going just yet, but stay tuned. Hopefully on Tuesday I can give a little more information. But yeah, Tuesday will be my last regular appearance on the Hot Read podcast.
I know, very, very sad to hear, but also exciting and ecstatic for you and your new venture that you will be embarking on. Super cool. This place, as a producer of the Hot Read podcast turned host, to see, my previous co-host Easton go to his next place and thrive, and it's crazy to say how, myself and you over the last year have taken this to a point where it's a launching pad for yourself and many others as well. I think it's really cool to see how much this podcast has grown. And once again, it's tough because, we have to make more changes around here and figure out what's going on. But it's awesome to see you continue to grow and get the recognition that you so very much deserve. And being able to give you a platform like this on the Hot Read podcast has been one of the best decisions I think I've ever made for this show. And we're so excited that you were along with us for the journey. Of course, if we do continue down this path, you will be a regularly scheduled guest, as appointment as needed on the show. But Yes. So Tuesday will be the final show with Stoney Keeley as my co-host. As for what happens next, that's what I was alluding to. We're going through a little bit of a transition phase here at the Hot Read podcast with some other things in the background. So we ask you to be patient around here if it's not a regularly scheduled 2 episodes every week up until training camp. More big things on the way. Excited to talk about those and figure out where we're going after this. But nevertheless, we will still bring you here on the Hot Read podcast the best Titans content we possibly can until we can't, basically. Like, the one thing we'll do is give you the best Titans content possible.
Well, I certainly appreciate the kind words, JT. This last year has been awesome. I love the show. I love everybody in the comments section. And if it's one thing I can say,
yeah, hold on. Since it's pre-recorded, who do you think's crashing out the most right now in the comments? If you had to give like a top 3 of your biggest crash outs right now in the comments,
I hope nobody's crashing out. I hope nobody's crashing out. But I don't know. I figure Eddie's usually the first one here.
Yes.
So as this is being released live, I've probably got a couple of DMs in my inbox waiting for me. I don't know. Like I said, I hope nobody's crashing out. I'm still going to be around, pretty easy to get a hold of. So it's not like they ain't putting me in the pine box and putting me in the ground just yet. So you're not
Mike Herndоning a podcast and moving halfway across the country.
No.
Yeah.
But if it's one thing I can say about that shield that has the 440 on it, it is that Braden has done such a good job of fostering community and putting people in place that foster that community as well among Titans fans. And I think you're a good shepherd of that vision, JT. You've done a fantastic job on Hot Read. All of our watchers, our commenters, our regulars, it kind of feels like getting together at the end of the day, hanging out with your friends, talking football for a little bit. And I think as long as that spirit is intact, I don't know if it matters who's next to you on the screen. So I think it's a testament to the work that you've done at this show. I think it's a testament to the foundation that Braden has built 440 Sports on. I think it's going to be just fine. And I'm happy to have been, a small chapter in this book.
Yeah, I think well said, and appreciate those words. And we'll have some fun things cooked up for Tuesday. I don't know what yet, but I'm sure it'll probably be one of our most wild and most random shows yet, for sure.
I might be
end it off with a bang.
Yeah, and that will be my vacation starts Wednesday. So that is going to be like the Hot Read happy hour of all Hot Read happy hours. Y'all might not be able to understand what I'm saying.
I love it. Yeah, so that is exciting. Make sure you are there. I'm sure we'll be going live at our regularly scheduled time unless you see anything different. But enough of the sadness. We'll escape that for just a couple moments. A little bit of a shorter show today as well, because of scheduling and whatnot. But the main question at hand is Cam Ward's development is something that I think got put a little bit to the wayside throughout the entirety of mandatory minicamp and OTAs because of just and maybe this is more so I don't know if there's a nice way to put it, but talking heads maybe outside of the Nashville area that continue to sing Cam Ward's praises and hype up the absolute crap out of the first overall draft pick. In that hype, I think we have maybe missed out on how this young guy is still very much a work in progress. This is not a situation where it's a Trevor Lawrence, where it's a Joe Burrow, where it's one of these first overall picks that is set and forget, and you're feeling good right from the start. If it were the case, then we would have never even had the conversation about should the Titans trade out in the first place from this past draft cycle. I see, I see Cam Ward more in that Kyler Murray first overall pick type of
fair enough
area, right? And even then, the biggest accolade I would say in his college career was that he was a Heisman like runner up, right? Like he did not never win the Heisman either. And so like there's still a lot, maybe to kind of wash away my absolute teetering on the hype train last week. Like there's still a lot of development that needs to happen here. And I think there was a part of last week's OTAs, or 2 weeks ago now, OTAs and mandatory mini camps that wanted to work on that from a different angle than I think they will in training camp. And what I mean by that is, right, we go back to that idea that the mandatory mini camps and OTAs were about experimenting, about seeing what works and what doesn't. And we continue to talk about how the biggest thing is that, yes, this experimenting is all leading up to when training camp comes around. You can't do any of that stuff. Like the 7-on-7 interceptions that apparently don't matter do matter now, because you're supposed to use the time off and the more, laid back practices to experiment. It's go time. It's pedal to the metal. And so what exactly needs to happen with that development for Cam Ward in training camp? I think that's the question I want to ask specifically. And I think there was a lot of good answers from his quarterbacks coach, Bo Hardegree, during training camp, and some other things that we saw that were exciting yet concerning as well. But ultimately, Stoney, I do think one of the biggest things is not necessarily the mental side of Cam Ward's, but the technique is more important than anything going into training camp.
Yeah, and listen, I heard our good buddy Easton Freeze on 3HL on 104.5 The Zone earlier this week talking about how there are still times at minicamp where he's out there throwing across his body, throwing off his back foot. You and I have talked about it from your reporting from minicamp, that there are still a couple of times where the ball is just slightly behind the wide receiver. So while things are a little looser and a little freer right now, those things lead to big mistakes. If that stuff isn't tight and clean and precise, it can lead to mistakes, which goes to the other aspect of it, to get away from technique. I still think there are questions about the decision-making, and nobody has said there aren't questions about the decision-making. To Brian Callahan's credit, he said, there's some stuff in there that you just live with because of the other stuff that he does well. I have done 3 more tape studies on Cam Ward. You can access those on Stacking the Inbox. The games against Cal and against Louisville are already up. The game against Wake Forest is going to be up on the 4th of July. Every single game that I watch, JT, and I watched 7 of his games prior to these 3. At this point, like, I've watched all but 2 of Cam Ward's games from last season. Every single game, there's a moment or two that you scratch your head, like, what is he looking at? What is he thinking? It's kind of a combination of the decision maybe wasn't the best decision, and maybe he's on the run, so he's throwing across his body, he's throwing off his back foot, those sorts of things. You hope that you can iron that out as the summer goes. But to me, those are the 2 big things that they have to iron out and get him in sync and gelling within this offense to eliminate the possibility for those disaster plays. Because while it didn't, the bad decisions didn't lead to turnovers in every single game, there's a play in every game that you're like, that should have been a turnover. And to me, that's what you got to kind of weed out at this point, is you got to get down to business with it. You've got to figure out what's causing that, and you've got to start correcting it. So to me, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road kind of moment for Cam Ward. It's like you talked about. They've been experimenting. They've been kind of taking some risks, and he's been forcing some balls into tight windows, that sort of thing. But now it's time to get to basics and get this ship on track.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you bring up those plays that Cam Ward still has in his game that make you say, what are you doing? I would say, and there were also some leaders of the Cam Ward fan club who simply wanted to bring up a conspiracy theory that the interception he threw to Cody Barton was processed by him that he could score points for his team by throwing it to Cody Barton instead of just throwing it away. Like that throw easily was one of those, what are you doing type of throws, like trying to make a play for the sake of making the play. Right.
Yeah.
And which, by the way, also the Cody Barton thing, like if Cody Barton scores points off an interception, isn't it fair to say that Cam Ward would lose points for throwing an interception? Like
one would think, yeah.
One would think that by throwing an interception, see, it gets too complicated way too quick. And if you're thinking that Cam Ward was thinking through all of that and decided to deliberately throw that ball, which, by the way, you didn't see, I saw him throw that ball, and no one else who was saying these conspiracy theories saw, like, that's where, like, those plays, he tries to make a play just to make a play. And I think those are the things that are a little concerning about his game, and one of the biggest roots of the issues. Now, like I said, like you said as well, we give him a pass because it's this experimenting phase. But if you start to see, like, how concerning will it be if we continue to see those, like, at least one or two day in and day out at training camp? Like, it makes me a little concerned, I would say.
And people, this is where people kind of came after me because of the Will Levis comp. It's not a comp, it's a parallel. I'm drawing a parallel between the two quarterbacks where you get into the same kind of problem as you had with Will Levis, because early on in the season, you go back to that Bears game and that Jets game, both of those kind of came down to a single mistake that unraveled everything, and the outcomes of those games were largely swung upon those moments. So they matter. That does matter. I would also say, to your point, just to get this in real quick, if he did make the choice to throw the ball to Cody Barton to get points for his team, then that's a bad decision. And that's exactly the type of thing that you're trying to clean up right now with Cam Ward. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a couple clips here from his quarterback's coach, Bo Hardigree, that we can get into to get into our discussion of, like, what needs to be fixed and how we should accurately gauge his progress throughout training camp and kind of set up that model to then at the end of training camp, kind of at our respective places, give a report card being like sign off on, like, the permission slip that he can go off and he can play quarterback and be the starter for the Tennessee Titans. And we'll get to those in just 1 second. But before we do that, got to shout out our presenting sponsor, ML Rose Craft Beer and Burgers, 7 locations in the greater Nashville area: Capitol View, Franklin, Gallatin, Melrose, 8th Avenue, Mount Juliet, Sylvan Park, and another location coming soon to East Nashville near Inglewood. ML Rose, over 25 beers on tap, a menu that is only about to get even newer and larger than it was before, and there really is nothing that misses on their menu, from their appetizers like the pretzel bites, the fried pickles and peppers, the Nashville hot cheese curds, all the way down their list of craft burgers. Some of my favorites, the pub burger, the Belgian burger, are all so very, very good. Anything on their menu, there's sure to be something that you will love, whether you're going out for date night, watching the NBA Finals, which for us tonight is Game 6. Will the Pacers make it a Game 7? I don't know. You're in the future, so you all will know. We won't. Yeah. Or just hanging out with friends, or going before a Nashville SC game. You got to check out ML Rose, because they are unbeatable in the Nashville area. And when you do, tell them that the Hot Read podcast sent you. Also, shout out to Sinkers Beverages, a 4-time Best of Nashville Liquor Store of the Year, who are celebrating their 40th birthday this upcoming August. Excited to be out there. I know I'm going to be out there with them for their 40th birthday jamboree. It's on Saturday, August the 9th at 5:30. Tickets, you can buy them over on the Basement East website. $10, all proceeds benefiting the Martha K. O'Brien Center in East Nashville. Some bands, live music, free stuff, hanging out with them. They're throwing a party to celebrate serving the East Nashville community for over 40 years. And when you buy your ticket, you are instantly entered into a raffle to join the Sinkers team to go out to Buffalo Trace and select a single barrel of bourbon with them on their trip, which, I might buy 7 tickets just to have 7 tries
Why
to go
not?
do that, So come out, hang out with us, and support a good cause, all presented by Sinkers Beverages. Okay, Stoney, let's look at some of these clips from Bo Hardigree. First of all, kind of talking about what they've seen so far from Cam in his development and over the last couple of periods that the team has been together. What have been the biggest things that Cam has needed to develop on and work on? And here's what Bo Hardigree had to say about those.
First of all, just the timing and the rhythm of the passing offense. Developing his footwork, his timing with that. That's been a big improvement. He's starting to feel his lower body connected with the timing of the passing concept. That's been big. Just operation out of the huddle. Things you got to do as an NFL quarterback when you break the huddle. That's improved. And defensive recognition. And he works really hard on his own on a lot of that stuff too. And, he's taking, call it a correction or, a coaching point, and kind of, if he makes a mistake, never making the same mistake twice. And that's important to him.
And the biggest thing there, first of all, with that, the one thing I don't have any worries about is the operation in and around the huddle, the checking at the line of scrimmage, the pre-snap looks, the being able to identify a base defense at the line of scrimmage. Those are the types of things that, unlike last year with Will Levis, I think are non-factors in the evaluation because I know it's there, right? I feel confident in it already. And maybe that's the one place that I'm very, very bullish on him, is that he has it between the ears and is very knowledgeable and a hard worker and has been working so hard at that to where it's a non-factor. So you can check that box off. The other stuff, like we're saying, the footwork, the getting it all connected to play on time and in a rhythm so that you can operate an offense effectively while still being able to do what Cam Ward does. I think those are the things that we need to see, right? The operation of being able to do more than just fit the ball into tight windows on the 3rd or 4th read because that's all you saw. Being able to carry out an offense that may want to attack the middle of the field, like Cam very much likes to do, but also be able to check out of those types of things, be able to use all areas of the field, something that he has talked about, is very new to him with the difference between the college and the NFL hash marks. Those are the technicality type of things that he still very much needs to work on. And that's where the baseline, I think, for Cam Ward really is when we get to training camp.
Yeah, and I think if you think about the things that Bo Hardigree was talking about there, like the lower body lining up with the timing of the passing concept and defensive recognition and that sort of thing, those are things that can kind of alleviate that sense of urgency, right? I wouldn't call Cam Ward panicked. I don't know if Cam Ward ever panics in his life, but those moments where you have the head scratching plays, if it's something where he's out of his comfort zone, he's outside of the pocket, maybe, not really sure of what he's seeing, forcing balls, that sort of thing. If he can improve the lower body mechanics, if everything about his timing, his release, his throwing motion, if it's all in sync with the play, with the timing aspect of the play, and he's reading and understanding what he's seeing from the defense, it should alleviate, theoretically, a lot of those issues that are leading to the head scratching disaster plays.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leaves us with the idea of how a quarterback is ready, right? I think we were looking for that moment last year with Will Levis day in and day out. And I don't know if we ever even started scratching the surface with an idea of, is this guy going to be ready? I think with Cam, it may be a little bit easier to do that, but we also asked Bo, what makes that a quarterback is ready. And listen, I give Bo all the credit in the world, having to be very methodical with his answers, because also, as you know, not committing to a starter for this team, whether it be Cam Ward, Will Levis, Brandon Allen or Tim Boyle. They're not ready to commit a starter. But, you talk about how a rookie quarterback is ready. And here's what he had to say about that.
There's some things I'd probably keep to myself on that one, but just how to carry themselves, when they're in there. You kind of get a good feel. Is anybody absolutely ever, as a rookie, ready for day one of the NFL football? It's different. And just try to put them under as much stressful situations as you can in practice, and that usually carries over to having some benefits in September.
And I think he's exactly right. How we know he's ready is that when the pads do come on, when you start to get Jeffrey Simmons in that first team defensive line, getting hands on you and not holding back, and seeing Cam still be able to operate like we've seen him do without pads on, being able to still continue to throw those tight window throws, still being able to read that defense, still being able to move out of the pocket if he needs to and generate plays, those types of things that when you look back to what Will Levis did last year and continue to just stand in the pocket in what a would-be sack and throw a ball away, like those are the types of things. And I'm not saying like he has to be perfect, right? There's still, I would wager to say like per 3 practices, you're probably going to see 3-4 interceptions for Cam. Like I don't think that's too much at all. I think that's a very realistic number per subject of 3 practices, right? But seeing him work towards that rhythmic and timing as much as you can, like Bo says, it's hard to do that in practice until you play a real game. But like that's the things that he needs to check the boxes with. Once the pads get on and things get real, do we still see the same Cam Ward and the same confidence that we saw in mandatory minicamp and OTAs? That's going to be the ultimate deciding factor.
Yeah, and I think it's a great quote from Bo Hardigree. I think from a fan's perspective, I think it's probably a stark reminder that, hey, this has all been well and good. We've had a fun time with it, but we still haven't seen anything for real. We still haven't seen the live bullets flying. And I think it's probably important to kind of shift our perspective a little bit and say, you know what? Like the excitement of the number 1 overall pick, the new franchise quarterback, we can get hyped about that. No big deal. Have some fun all spring with it. But now, like, just be open-minded that there's about to be a significant shift in competition that will be followed by another significant shift in competition when you have another different team across from you in the preseason, and then it'll be ratcheted up yet again when the actual regular season starts in September. So it's the next time we see Cam Ward, it is going to be kind of put up or shut up time, where we're going to start seeing what he's really made of in more accurate, appropriate game settings. And
I think that's a good way to not only end that conversation, but also just kind of talk about where we are right now with pre-training camp. It's really for this team, this new team. I feel like last year with Brian Callahan in this honeymoon period, it extended well into training camp before that really wore off.
Yeah.
The newness of having all these new shiny players that even though they had their flaws or they weren't exactly connecting with their quarterback or practicing, like those things like were given excuses for it because of how new it was and the hope you were feeling. That doesn't necessarily extend because you have a rookie quarterback, right? Like there are places all over this roster that they have to put up or shut up. L'Jarius Sneed is one because who knows what's going to happen with the cornerbacks if he is not able to play. I think in the wide receiver core, we had this discussion on Tuesday when Easton Freeze dropped by to talk about his rankings of the AFC South. Feels like even though there's still things to like about Alec Ayumanor and Chimere Dike, and from what it sounds like, not a lot of things to like from Tyler Lockett and Van Jefferson, according to him and many people in the chat. But like there's still like an unproven void behind Calvin Ridley, even though there's been a lot of roster turnover. Like it's kind of put up or shut up time for Tyler Lockett. How fast can he fast track back to practice to start making a connection with Cam? Because for all intents and purposes, he's going to have to be the wide receiver 2 come the first game against Denver. Like, that's how it's going to be. It's going to be put up or shut up time for Dan Moore and a lot of other players on this team. And so it's going to be an interesting training camp. I think we're going to have a lot more of a critical nature on it this year, which is not it's not a bad thing. It's not that we hate this team, but like, it's important to remember how last year felt and want to look at it and learn from those mistakes. And I think it's going to be really, really exciting.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, in some ways, this dry spell sucks. I mean, it is like the darkest time of the football calendar that we're entering right now. But I think the spin on that is that it does mean that football is right around the corner. And so there is that sort of light at the end of the tunnel of the off season, and the vibes have been strangely high. I say strangely because it's a lot different from the way things felt last year. And now it kind of feels like there is a hope that not only do you have the franchise quarterback, but I think there's a hope that the culture, the foundation is a lot stronger, and that gives you something sturdier to build upon. And it means that we're closer to answering a lot of these questions that we have. But to your point, I would just say, let's keep an open mind about this. Let's show some patience here, because there are spots all across this roster with guys that have to prove it.
Final question today, Stoney, and I know it's a shorter show, but still trying to give you guys content, and had to do kind of a state of the union of the Hot Read podcast. But we'll end today's show on this question: are the Titans closer to a playoff berth or another acquisition cycle? Drink. Had to get that in there.
Man, I think they're still a cycle or two away.
There you go. Wow.
I think they could surprise with just elevated quarterback play alone, but I think we are assuming too much that we are just going to automatically get elevated quarterback play. I think it might take a little bit of time, and if that's the case, I think they're probably out of the playoffs at that point. So I'm gonna say another acquisition cycle or two.
I think I would agree with you. Just had to shoehorn that in there for good time, old time's sake before we head out of here. But that's going to do it today on a abbreviated Hot Read podcast. We appreciate you guys being here with us on Stoney Keeley's penultimate episode as my co-host. We also appreciate our sponsors, ML Rose and Sinkers Beverages. Remember, if you want to check out their 40th birthday party, you can buy tickets over on the Basement East's website. Also check out your local ML Rose, because they got a brand new menu coming to you very, very soon. And until Tuesday for Stoney Keeley's final show, Bonanza, Party, Palooza, whatever you want to call it, another a Tuesday happy hour. This has been the Hot Read podcast. We will talk to you then. Have a great weekend, everyone.